Okay, a function, f of x equals a sine of bx plus h, has the following properties. And then they tell you a whole bunch of stuff. So we need to figure out what a, b, and h are. And then in this particular context, this particular problem from a released exam, you would drag the numbers into the appropriate box and you would say, okay, I've got it, I'm done. So really, you just need to figure out what a is, b is, and h is, given this criteria. So let's start reading the criteria, and we're going to start tackling this, and we'll go through some Desmos hints and things like that. The period is 6. Okay, let's just stop for just a second, and I really think that's a good place to start in figuring out what the number is in here that will affect the period and give us a period of 6. That'll narrow things down already. So let's say what we know. I know that A is the amplitude, and I kind of halfway lied. A is not the amplitude, but it tells us the amplitude. It is the number A. If it's positive, it's the amplitude. If it's negative, make it positive, and that would be the amplitude. Basically, do the absolute value, and that is your amplitude. H, in this case, is the midline. I usually use a different letter for it, variable, but that's okay. And B is not the period, but it affects the period. If it truly was the period, and I need a period of 6, we'd have a 6 right here. So it's not. So let's go ahead and figure that out. Let's do that one first, and I'm going to grab my old iPad. That's it. And I'm going to go ahead and start typing this in. So f of x equals, I'll just put y equals, and it is sine of, I need some parentheses. Struggling here. Sine of bx. Now you could put the letter b and then an x, but you don't have the option of a slider on your exam, I don't think. So I'm going to go ahead and just start picking options. I'm going to start with the first option, pi over 2. All right, so let's start with pi over 2. And so I'll put pi over 2. There we go. You better go. X. All right, and I have this graph. So this is what I'm looking at, and what are you looking for, Mr. Reader? I'm glad you asked. I'm looking for a period to be 1/2. So, sorry, not 1/2, 6. I want the period to be 6, and again, I'm looking at this first line right here. I haven't read the rest of them, but we'll read them in a minute. Take the problem in pieces if you need to. So I'm going to go from beginning all the way up, all the way down, and then back to where I started, and try to get that to be 6 because they said so. And so far it looks like it's not 6. Like this starts at 0, 0. You better go. And this one ends at 4, 0. That's not it. So it's not pi over 2. It's something other than pi over 2. So let's change this a little bit. And I will back up. And I will change that 2 to a 3 because that's my next option. On the paper, that's the next option. And actually, that is the correct option. So here it is. It was kind of anticlimactic, wasn't it? Starts at 0, 0. Ends at 6, 0, all the way up, all the way down, and then back to where I started. So the period is indeed 6. Pi over 3 is the thing, the b, that did that for me. So we have already done the first one. And we found b to be pi over 3, so you'd click and you'd drag that there. Okay, so far so good. Will you get partial credit for this? I think so. I hope so. Can't promise that, though. A minimum value of 2. So I want the lowest thing to be a 2. The lowest value to be a 2. So let's look at Desmos one more time. Well, several more times. I want the bottom of this thing not to be where it is, but I want it to be here at 2. So I need to slide this thing up. I need to very much slide this thing up. So let's change the midline, and that's in our context, the h value. And I think the first option they gave us for the midline is 2. So I'm going to type a 2. And we'll see what happens there. And that's not it. That's not it at all. So that I needed to go a little bit higher. And the next option they give us is a 4. And that is too high. That's not what we want. We want it to bottom out here. But we don't have an option in between. So, okay, here's where I'm going again. So H is either 2 or 4 or 6 or 8. Well, something's wrong. 2's too low and 4's too high. Why don't we start impacting this with the amplitude? So let's go ahead and plug in the first option for the amplitude, which is 2. And two. There we go. Ah, so far so good. Let's see if this is correct. The bottom of it is at 2. The period is still 6. It starts and ends in 6 units on the x-axis. And now there's more criteria to read. So we've done what we need to with the first one and the second one. I'm reluctant to check it yet until we do the third one. F of 2.5 equals 5. Let's reword that. Here's what it really means. 2.5 comma 5 is on the graph. You don't have to write that. You can just kind of know that that's what it truly means. 2.5 comma 5 is a coordinate on the graph. Let's graph that point. Let's see what happens. If we graph 2.5 comma 5, let's see if it shows up on our graph. And I'll go ahead and tell you that it does. See that green dot right there? There it is. So we have met the first 3 criteria. So we have a period of 6, bottom line, the minimum is at -2. It goes through the point 2.5 comma 5. And so check, check, check. And A, B, and H are all positive. Well, the only options they gave us were positive anyway. So, I mean, that's kind of pointless. So what we had in Desmos had a 2 for A, pi over 3 for B, and a 4 for H. So there is some experimenting that goes with this, but it's educated experimenting, educated guessing. And you just kind of go through these one at a time, check off what you know, type in what you need to, like type in the coordinate 2.55, make sure it goes through there.